So, what is glyphosate and why is it one of the hot topics for the Make America Healthy Again or MAHA movement? Why is it one of their hot topics? Well, glyphosate is a weed killer that's sprayed on a large percentage of crops in the United States and other countries, but the United States a lot more than most. It's sprayed on the crops that are for human consumption and the feed crops that our animals eat, specifically the ones we consume, meat and dairy and poultry. The primary controversy comes from first, can we trust the current research that says this stuff is safe? The second item is there a correlation of glyphosate use and the uptick in health problems? Is that causal or coincidental? Now, at this point, we kind of need to unpack this a bit. First, there are a lot of food and environmental factors that were in flux during the 80s and 90s, during the same period that glyphosate was coming online, that could be contributing to or actual causal factors in the various health issues we have. Now, correlation in time is not proof of causation. However, correlation does not eliminate the possibility of causation either. I think it's fair to say that the trust level of medical studies, including those in the past, are probably at an all time low. Reviewing and retesting are not only clearly in order, but retesting is just good science. Our understanding of gut bacteria is still in the very early stages and is not well understood. This understanding of gut bacteria was even lower when many of these initial glyphosate studies were performed, and we're going to delve into that much more deeply in a bit. First, how does glyphosate work? Most pesticides work by chemically burning the leaves of the plant. Glyphosate is different in that it attacks the plants at their cellular level. Glyphosate specifically targets an enzyme called EPSPS. Now, its actual spelled out version is on the slide that's appearing next to me. I'm not even going to make an attempt at that, but there is what EPSPS uh, is derived from. And like I said, there's no way I'd be able to get that out even once. This enzyme is a key player in the shikimate pathways of the plants. This is which the plants use to synthesize three critical amino acids, uh, one of them being tryptophan. So by glyphosate binding to EPSPS, glyphosate prevents the enzyme from catalyzing the conversion of the precursor to critical amino acids. So basically, the building blocks of those amino acids are disrupted so they can never be made. Without these amino acids, the plant can't produce proteins essential for growth, for defense, and other vital functions. Now, the shutdown of the shikimate pathway starves the plant of these amino acids, leading to a cascade of metabolic disruptions. Glyphosate is a systemic herbicide, meaning it's absorbed through the leaves and then transferred via the plant's vascular system to the growing tissues, including the roots and shoots. This ensures it reaches the growth points where the lack of amino acids essentially has a devastating effect. Here's the key point, which we're going to revisit a little bit later. This shikimate pathway doesn't exist in animals, including humans, which is why glyphosate, glyphosate is considered relatively safe for non-plant organisms. By the way, uh, I cannot pronounce that word unless I'm reading it. I can just barely pronounce it when I am. Some reason that my brain wants to put a C in the word. Uh, However, there's a catch here, and we're going to talk about this catch dealing with the shikimate pathway in a bit. So, why do we care if farmers spray herbicide on weeds? Well, the answer is they're not just spraying weeds. Many of the plants we and animals are currently eating are now being pulled from genetically modified counterparts. These are known as Roundup Ready plants. Soybeans, corn, canola, sugar beets, and alfalfa are now primarily Roundup Ready in this country, which means the farmers actually spray the crops with the Roundup, uh, the glyphosate, and actually the crop plants survive it and the weeds around die. These plants are really the critical foundation of our processed food system. Alfalfa is primarily fed to dairy and beef cows, as well as lesser amounts to other meat source animals. Some alfalfa ends up in poultry diet and pig diets as well. So farmers spray the herbicide directly on the crops. Any weeds mixed in die, and then the Roundup Ready plants continue to grow. But there's even more. Because Roundup is deemed to be safe, it's also used to spray on plants to speed up their end of season drying and dying phase. It's called pre harvest desiccation. For example, things like wheat, oats, barley, sunflowers, and many other seed plants are sprayed when the plants reach maturity. The plant dies and then the seeds dry out more quickly. This ends up directly in our food supply and the foods our animals consume. Both Roundup Ready plants as well as pre harvest desiccation spraying is in very wide use in the United States. This wouldn't be a big problem if glyphosate completely broke down in the environment. Glyphosate does great breaking down in the soil because it is attacked by microorganisms in the soil that break it down into uh, non reactive and safe compounds. However, it's not as reactive in the atmosphere to oxidation in sunlight. So it does end up in our food. 30 to 80% of our wheat based products have glyphosate in it. That range is so wide because uh, seed crops that are not Roundup Ready aren't always sprayed. They're only sprayed when the farmers believe that weather is going to be an issue, where they want to get the crops harvested before like a wet season starts or before expected frost comes in, things like that. 95% of oat samples show glyphosate. Barley grains and malt used in beer. Uh, Glyphosate has been detected in 10% of beer brands, 20% of corn samples, 50% of soy samples, and 30% of canola samples. Sunflower seeds, oils, and glyphosate, sunflower seeds and oils also show glyphosate, and 90% of wines test positive for glyphosate as well. Uh, Also, low levels show up in apples, potatoes, and carrots. These are generally residue wash off from other operations. Glyphosate does show up in all dairy products and it does show up in meat, but more prominently in organ meat. 80% of random urine samples in the United States that were taken for testing had glyphosate detected. A similar test in Germany yielded 95% of the urine samples having glyphosate in it. German and Canadian breast milk testing showed trace levels in all samples. Now, the good news is the US government says that none of the glyphosate showing up in all these samples exceeds what they consider to be safe levels. And depending on what the target for testing is, that would range somewhere between 1 and 20 parts per million. So that leads to a question. Do we trust these results enough to let them stand, or should we be revisiting the amount showing up and questioning what the government considers to be safe levels? Now, I mentioned something earlier, which I'm going to repeat. I had said that the Shikimati pathway doesn't exist in animals, including humans. And this is the reason why glyphosate is considered relatively safe for non-plant organisms. But what about the microbes in our gut? Do they have Shikimati pathways? And the answer is yes. Well, why does that matter? We are at best at the cusp of understanding gut microbes. We know enough that we should take probiotics in cultured yogurt if we take antibiotics. We know we can have very serious disorders come from taking antibiotics if we don't treat with probiotics when it's over. So medical science realizes there's something going on there. Our gut microbes are responsible for breaking down some of the food we eat. Some trace minerals that are critical to our health can't be extracted from our food without them. We also are aware that the right balance of good gut microbes helps keep bad microbes at bay. Overpopulations of bad gut microbes can cause many different digestive orders. Gut microbes produce many chemicals that end up in the brain and impact our mental health. Chemicals from our gut appear to impact depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, autism, and possibly even Alzheimer's. Studies do acknowledge that glyphosate does appear to have a role that impacts the gut biome. Most of our critical gut bacteria utilize Shikimati pathways. So although we don't, our gut bacteria does. Glyphosate disrupts these pathways. If disrupting those pathways can kill an entire plant, it's reasonable to assume that glyphosate, even in the parts per million amounts, may be enough to kill, impair, or alter the chemical output of a gut microbe. The results of those studies believe that there is an impact. Basically, if you read the results of the study, they say yes, for sure, the gut biome is being impacted by glyphosate, but they conclude that the impact is not significant. But there's an issue with that. We are in the early stages of understanding how the gut biome works. We acknowledge glyphosate alters it, but we confidently proclaim it's not significant. It's awfully coincidental that many of the issues we are experiencing as a nation may be related to the gut biome. The problems started about the same time as glyphosate came into common usage, and that it's reasonable to assume that a compound designed to shut down Shikimati pathways might be shutting down the Shikimati pathways of our gut bacteria. 80% of American urine has glyphosate in it, so it's not like it's isolated, and it's not like we're processing it out completely, because in order to get to the kidneys, it had to get there somehow. Now, it's clear I'm leading you in a direction with my narrative, but I do want to conclude this portion of this analysis by saying I've proved nothing. I've presented evidence that is well known in certain circles. I think it points to the idea that an investigation into the impact of glyphosate on humans is very much in order. I want to add something for consideration. Right now, in my state, pro-glyphosate political action committees are blanketing my state with advertising, making it sound as if the food supply would collapse if glyphosate were to go away. Checking out various research papers, estimating is essentially from the point glyphosate was introduced until roughly current, we've been having a steady increase in crop yields. Some of those are being attributed to the glyphosate use. Based on those studies, they're saying essentially somewhere in the neighborhood, and it depends on the type of crop and it varies year to year, that glyphosate is increasing our crop yields somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 10%. So if some study comes along indicating that we should modify how we use glyphosates, And modification could be elimination of usage. It could be restricting the use of desiccation, the protocols. It could be only pre-spraying fields to kill early weeds. Different countries have different methodologies. But the point being is, if we change the way we use glyphosate, it will impact our food budget, 5 to 10% reduction in production, but it won't be catastrophic. And also, there are other things we were doing that could eventually make up for this loss. So it's not the end of the world, as I'm starting to hear in the various pro glyphosate advertising. Okay, so in the comments below, uh, are you following any of the stuff that the Make America Healthy Again groups are pursuing? The kind of stuff RFK Jr. has in mind? What do you think of that? Are you familiar with what's going on with glyphosate or what has been going on? What do you think of that? Do you think it's a problem? Do you think it's overblown? Interested to hear what you have to say in the comments below. Please smash the like button. If the YouTube algorithms brought you here and you're not a regular subscriber, check out my titles. I get into lots of different stuff. You'll find something you like, consider subscribing. And if you know someone who might find this interesting, please share it with them. Well, thank you for spending time with me this evening. Hope to see you again in a future video.